welcome. And then also all the speakers, the chair, and then our CAIPSDCC personnel here. Good morning. So for participants, you can say hi to each other in the chat box. And then I'm Lia Zakia, the program coordinator for CAIPSDCC, the collaborative of Australia-Indonesia programs on sustainable development and climate change. It's great to meet you all here again because we are going to discuss very important topic as well. It's called Community Participation, Institution, and Multi-Stakeholder Platform in Building Small Islands Resilience. And thank you very much for those of you who have registered to our event. We have more than 1,100 registered participants. It is more than the capacity of the Zoom account. We have our sincere apology for those who can't enter the Zoom room. Hence, we also set up a live stream option via YouTube. Hello all who watch this from YouTube. I hope it's already alive. So you can say, you can all say hi to each other by writing down your name, your organization, and which city you are from in the chat box. So we know where you are coming from. Yeah, in the chat box. And then, yeah, I'm going to give some explanation about CAIPSDCC. As you have heard before, that it is a collaboration between Griffith University, Australia, and Universitas Indonesia, along with some other universities in Indonesia, such as Universitas Hasanuddin in Makassar. The collaboration has several components. The first component is a research collaboration on climate change and sustainable development. We focus on the 4 themes. The first one is impacts of climate change on planetary and human health, sustainable landscape management, energy transition, and carbon pricing, and also increasing the resilience and small islands in eastern Indonesia. This research collaboration component aims at enhancing the science to policy principle. Therefore, we have included various stakeholders to the research, national and local government, private sectors, NGOs, and communities. We have diverse speakers for today representing various stakeholders, so stay tuned. The second component is the capacity building. The third is student mobility between Australia and Indonesia. And the fourth one is the high-level dialogues and the series of webinars. Today's event is under this component. So ladies and gentlemen, let me check whether, okay, YouTube aman, so it's great. So now I'd like to explain some housekeeping rules to make sure that we have an enjoyable session and a meaningful discussion. The participants don't have to fill in any attendance lists. We will have attendance report from Zoom, so you can just focus on the materials. You can write down your questions in the Q&A box. Q&A box, not the chat box. We usually receive a lot of questions. It is challenging for us to answer all, but we will do our best. Make sure that you read the existing questions first before you write down your own. Just in case it has similarity with yours, then you can just upvote it by clicking the thumbs up icon. For YouTube viewers, you can also write down your questions on the live chat section. Our team will move it to the Q&A box in the Zoom to ensure that it can be seen by other participants at Zoom to be upvoted as well. The chair will focus on the most popular questions with the most upvote or the most relevant to the discussions at that moment. The presentation materials can be downloaded in our Google Drive account. We will share the link at the end of this webinar, so stay tuned. Information about the request for certificates will be shared in the end of the webinar as well, so stay tuned. So we also have a poll today, which I'm going to launch now. So it would be great if all participants can participate in the poll. So ladies and gentlemen, I think we can begin our section. The cat is sneezing. So before we begin, I think it would be great to hear opening remarks from Prof. Rahmat Witular, the former President Special Envoy for Climate Change, and then now the patron for CAIPSDCC, and then also Associate Professor in Universitas Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Prof. Rahmat Witular. Pak Rahmat. Yeah, could you please turn on your video and unmute yourself, Pak? You're still muted, so
Okay.
yes.
Can you see me now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So what's going to happen?
Yeah,
Hello.
Bapak, you can deliver your opening remarks, Pak.
Okay, right now. Okay. Thank you, Leah. And hello, all the web participants. And I'd like to appreciate all the participants who have listened for us. I'm happy and honored to be introducing my remarks on this very important webinar. It should be very important for all of us because we are probably talking concerning the very existence of our small islands, including the health and the livelihood of the participants. We are all aware that these small islands are under extreme challenges caused by climate change and other natural disasters. As Professor Caitlin, who's here right now, commented last time in the last webinar, that our islands are at the forefront of multiple crises and challenges. That's what it is. The beautiful and rich biodiversity of the coastal land and lands of the islands are in ironic contrast with the people that inhabit these islands, because the people are still lacking in the basic capacities and capabilities in meeting the challenges. If this situation continues and persists, it is inevitable that both the natural biodiversity as well as the welfare of the population will be endangered. Talking about the small islands and its well-being, I suggest that we reap some benefits from lessons learned from efforts on the same topic at the UN, although on a global scale. We try to get the best practices and the best from the UNFCCC. At the UNFCCC, it is recognized that the world's smallest islands members of the SIDS, this is the Small Islands Developing States, are crucial in global decision making. In particular, because those small islands are the epicenter of the concerns of vulnerability in all the regions of the world. For starters, what they have done is to complete the consolidation of efforts, increase capacity building, and provide funding and technical assistance. Subsequently, more funding for the vulnerability to overcome is started. A special commission was founded, focusing on the needs of developing countries and islands, in particular those in Africa and the SIDS, the Small Islands Developing States. And adaptation programs are pushed to the foreground. Moderator, friends, our small islands in Indonesia are a microcosm of those problems on the global scene. Certainly, it does have a different scale of the potentials and needs, but the basic paradigm still holds, which is to recognize the needs, build capacity, and push adaptation programs up front. Through this webinar, we hopefully can launch a strategic plan to implement. Or being small, all islands scattered, it should be no-brainer that the first effort should be to consolidate all the possibilities available and to overcome natural as well as economic handicaps. We have to adhere to the golden rule that the scale of economics matter in cases like this. To achieve that, a multi-stakeholders platform for small islands, sustainability and resilience is needed, and which is we're talking about at this webinar. To be effective, it should comprise of policymakers, institutions, scientists, NGOs, and concerned citizens. It will be a platform for pushing the implementation of decisions that otherwise would evaporate over time. To establish this, a continuous dialogue amongst the small islands and concerned citizens is useful and necessary. In this context, this webinar is in a position to assume that role and starting the ball rolling, particularly that we see that experts, policymakers, and other important stakeholders are present and participating in this session. So dear friends, panelists, and organizers, as a person that has been there and back, I trust that this webinar session will contribute to the benefit of the small islands so dear to us. In closing, I want to express my deepest appreciation to CAIPSDCC, to the ICER, and all organizers and panelists. I am sure that we'll enjoy an inspirational dialogue and wish all of us great success. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Pak Rahmat Witular. That's great. Thank you for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to remind you again that we have a polling. So it would be great if you all could participate so we can have a meaningful discussion with the result of that polling. So now I would like to introduce our wonderful chair today, Dr. Nadiarti Nurdin Kadir. Dr. Nadia atau Bu Nadia received her doctorate degree in Management of Natural Resources and Environment from the Bogor Agricultural Institute. She currently works in several strategic positions in Universitas Hasanuddin, including Secretary of COE for Marine Resilience and Sustainable Development, Head of Learning Center for Ecosystem Approach to Fisheries Management, and Head of Undergraduate Study Program on Aquatic Resources Management. I hope everyone still can hear me. I have unstable internet connection. Yes? Okay, I'll just continue. Her research interests focus on bioecology and management of intertidal and shallow waters. Dr. Nadia currently have an ongoing research project or study on seagrass habitat structure models, adaptive to anthropogenic disturbance to support the conservation. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, okay, please welcome Dr. Nadia, Ibu Nadia, monggo.
Hello, Mbak Lia, thank you. Good morning. Welcome to all the distinguished speakers, and thank you for joining us in this webinar. So my name is Nadia, and I will be the chair for this session. So welcome to everyone, and confident with the Zoom discussion panel. We also looking forward a lively discussion with you all who are joining in YouTube as well as in the Zoom. As Mbak Lia said, that if you have any question, you can put your question in the Q&A panel, and we will pick some interesting question later to be delivered to the related speakers. All right. So the topic of this webinar will focus on the community participation, institution, and multi-stakeholder platforms in building small island resilience. Why is this topic become a topic for this webinar? Actually, the webinars has a focus on a series on increasing resilience of small island in Eastern Indonesia. And the first webinar has concluded that it is common to see the area that is rich in biodiversity has a full population. And this is happening in small island communities in the eastern part of Indonesia as well. And in the second webinar last week, talking about the ecosystem and its biophysical component hold an important role in supporting and protecting the small islands from the risk it faces, especially the climate crisis. Unfortunately, the ecosystem itself is threatened by the climate crisis and unsustainable practices. So to understand better how the beneficiary of ecosystem services to take an active role in protecting the environment, how could this be achieved, it is important to identify and understand the role of all the stakeholders, from the community, civil society organization, government, and other institutions in building a small island resilience through sustainable strategies and practices. So therefore, the topic for this webinar is about community participation, institution, and multi-stakeholder platform in building small island resilience. So, there are many questions will come up from this topic. What is the role of each small island stakeholder, from the community, civil society organization, government, and other institutions in building a small island resilience? How could each stakeholder work together to achieve sustainability? Is there already a strategy or program which could be implemented, replicated, and developed further? So let's discuss this question with the experts. But before that, I would be happy to introduce 4 distinguished guests as our speakers for this webinar. The first is Bapak Insinyur Hugua. Mr. Hugua currently serves as a member of parliament in the House of Representatives of the Republic of Indonesia, DPR RI, for the period 2019 to 2024. He received his bachelor's degree in agronomy from Universitas Halu Oleo in 1988. From 2002 to 2005, he works as the executive director of Sintesa, a civil society organization that focuses on humanitarian aid for clean water infrastructure and the development of economy and health in the village level. He served as regent of Wakatobi for 2 periods, starting from 2006 until 2016. Mr. Hugua currently also serves in several strategic positions. One of them is as chairman of the board of the Indonesian Tourism Industry Association of Southeast Sulawesi Province. The second speaker, Professor Wahyoe Soepri Hantoro. Professor Wahyoe Soepri Hantoro received his Doctor of Philosophy, PhD, in Geodynamic and Quaternary Geology from the Université d'Aix-Marseille II, France, in 1992. He previously served as research professor at the Research Center for Geotechnology, Indonesian Institute of Science, LIPI, and he's currently a research fellow professor at the University of Wollongong, research fellow professor at the University of Queensland, Australia, and guest research professor in the Laboratory of Marine Geology, Tongji University, Shanghai, China. Prof. Wahyoe's research interest and expertise varied in the field of geology, neotectonic sea level variation, and paleoclimatology. The next guest, our guest, Maggie Moormans, PhD candidate, born in Indonesia and raising in the Netherlands. Maggie has over 19 years experience in community engagement and community-based conservation in Europe, Latin America, Asia, and Oceania. Her projects include the establishment of community conservation areas, protected area management, and alternative livelihood development. Maggie is currently a PhD candidate at Griffith University, researching community engagement in conservation. Gendewa Tunas Rancak, MTech. Gendewa Tunas Rancak is an environmentalist with work and research interest in the field of socio-sea landscape, climate change, waste management, disaster preparedness, marine and island development, and environment impact assessment. He currently serves as Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, Nahdlatul Ulama University, Mataram, West Nusa Tenggara, Indonesia. He is also the head division of Environment and Economic Development, Santiri Foundation. Gendewa received his master's degree in coastal engineering and management from the 10 November Institute of Technology. And starting from 2012 until now, Gendewa works as the dynamisator of Delta Api, Ecological Resilience Village towards Climate Change. So those are our special guests I have introduced. So now I would like to move to the presentation for our speakers. And for the first chance, I would like to invite Mr. Hugua to go first for your presentation. Would you like to go first, Mr. Hugua? The time is yours.
Thank you, Bu Nadia. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, good morning, almost midday today. So thank you very much for Bu Nadia, also for the institution that hold this seminar, Mr. Jamal Jompa and all of the college. Also thank a lot for Profesor Ahmad Fitular.
Pak Hugua, bisa
Ya.
dimulai videonya, Pak? Videonya masih stop? Oke.
Sorry.
Great. Yes.
Ah.
Great.
Okay. Oh yeah, thank you. Okay, can you see me now?
Iya, Pak.
Okay. So, okay, I continue. Thank you very much for Pak Profesor Ahmad Fitular and also all of the distinguished speaker. Your opening speech, Pak Profesor Ahmad Fitular, this put in my mind a lot of ideas, and also it is relevant what I would like to presenting today. I come into my presentation now. Okay. Sorry. Can you come to the topic? Okay.
Yes, we can see your slide.
So,
Great.
okay, it's okay now? Yeah, sometimes technical problem. It's okay now?
Yes.
Okay, so
We can see your presentation now.
yes, so the topic is the role of local government in the management of Wakatobi Biosphere Reserve. Study case, a building small island resilience. Yeah, me as what is introduced before of the moderators, me is Hugua, is the former mayor of Wakatobi 2006 until 2016. So what I like presenting here, it is the real exercise in the village. These are study cases during I leading Wakatobi to become one of the best reserve based in the ocean. So I just, because the time is very precious, so I make quickly. So before I lead Wakatobi, I must see the position, the global position. I see that there is 3 of the ecological complex in the world: Coral Triangle, of course, Amazon and Congo Basin. So Coral Triangle, me now, my position is the head of the local government network within CTS countries. So I know CTS countries here have the highest biodiversity in the world, 750 coral species, 942 fishes. Scientifically, the most interesting place on the planet. So a lot of students come to Wakatobi for research, doing PhD, undergraduate, and so on. And then have a look at this data about the coral reef and diving center or anything of the what is for ecotourism. So Caribbean just 50 species, Red Sea 300 species, Wakatobi, Indonesian and Coral Triangle 750 among 850. So everything about coral in Indonesia. Yeah, Wakatobi, just very quick. This is the donation of Wakatobi Biosphere Reserve. With the population of Wakatobi now, it's 112,000 people. So the Biosphere Reserve, here's the definition. because you are as the science, of course, you know. So they're the place that provide local solutions to global challenge. They are the site for testing interdisciplinary approach to understanding and managing change in interaction between social and ecological systems, include the conflict prevention and management of biodiversity. So from the potential of Wakatobi, I see the problem of small island. It is not only in Wakatobi, but all of the island in Indonesia. This is a large position due to lack of infrastructure. Of course, sorry. Okay, because my picture is what is menutupi saya punya tulisan ini. So isolasi due to lack of infrastructure, communication facility, it is the evidence of former mainland national policy planned during 30 years new order baru waktu itu. That is why always the island always far away from central government because of lack of infrastructure and communication. Also vulnerable to climate change, economy, social, politics, and culture, of course. Another problem for the island is local budget constraint. The proportion of national budget allocated to the local government must depend on the population densities. Small island, not so many people there. There is not so much money allocated from central government to the island-based municipality. That is the problem. And another reality, the local government role related to the Indonesian decentralization process. The national government reduced his power and power in the local government to manage their own resources, local development until 70%. It means that 70% the power given to the mayor, and also the power of central government just 40%. But again, the budget's just 30% from the total national budget share about 600 municipalities in Indonesia. That is another evidence. So the developed or underdeveloped, or the growth or not growth of the development in the municipality level, it is depend on the leadership, the brain of the mayor himself, include me, when put Wakatobi to become the center of biodiversity is like in this vision. This vision is very creative vision. Because I see the potential of the ecosystem about ecotourism, I put this a crazy vision. Underwater products are to live in the descent for a triangle. And another ambitious success vision that Wakatobi to become the center of Earth marine biodiversity by 2025. Another ambitious also, my target. 2025, Wakatobi Biosphere Center of Excellence in the Coral Triangle. So from this potential, I see there are actually the sector from this very ambitious vision, fishery and marine and ecotourism. That is this vision or the leading sector to achieve the vision of Wakatobi that I tell you before. And I have a cultural change principle also. If you contribute to the universe, you will harvest for a long time from it. If you harvest only from the universe, you will get nothing in the end. This is the cultural principle I push all of my stuff. You must contribute, then you can earning something from the earth. Rather than you extract from the earth, then you don't get anything in the end. Another, I believe that because the power of mayor, 70%, and the central government give me 70%, and the central government just 30%. I must have their own ideas that decentralization is the place for individual, family, and community, or the place for natural resources, or the place for indigenous leaders. So I must manage by myself. Central government, other university, NGO, it is just help me. But the main thing is me as the mayor, in behalf of the community, I must help myself first. Second is because the family, natural resources, indigenous in my hand, not in province level, not in national level, not in global level, but me. High biodiversity, I mean, the key for creativity, innovation, and collectivity. It is another principle. And ecosystem, the principle to generate. So, guys, don't you extract so much from the earth. You must contribute. If you contribute, then you earn from the nature to become economy and so on. Another principle, ecotourism, the success, people, culture, natural resources, and environment. That's another principle. So I try to do the development of Wakatobi in 3 areas. So how we make a program that social culture is okay, environment, biodiversity is okay, and economy is okay. So the birds reserve should be the main effort for me to achieve. And Alhamdulillah, on July 2012, with the ICC MAB meeting in Paris, and the committee gave me 15 minutes for speech to make sure all of the participants, and finally Wakatobi declared to become the biosphere reserve by UNESCO. The second, the achievement. This is the forum, that one. And the second is Wakatobi to become top 10 tourism destination declared by the central government of the Indonesian. So why this successfully? It is best practice can achieve because this from these 3 areas. Sorry. Oh, another problem. This blocked by this one. Oh, happened this. Oh, not. Yeah. Sorry. Oh my goodness, another technical problem. There's something blocking mine. Oh, la la. Wait. Oh my goodness. I couldn't read it because I'm technical. Yeah, okay. Now I can see it. So the key success Wakatobi biodiversity management is the integrated cooperation of stakeholders between community here, central and local government, NGOs and university also involved there, private sector, tribal structure leader, and also we are combining one forum. The name of forum is the Wakatobi Biodiversity Forum. It is also continuing with the Bupati decision. I make decision like this. So this decision, it is coordination. The coordination means involvement all of the stakeholders to be one to thinking about Wakatobi development in terms of people and culture, natural resources, and environment. So what we try to do this, all of the development should be considering this kind of thing in order in the future the economy can gain it, but also in the same time also environment and the natural resources sustainability we can gain. So this decree, so this decision play important role for Wakatobi to make togetherness for all of the stakeholders. And this is Wakatobi banget. I can say this is Wakatobi banget because it is one of the best practices that I'm doing to make this can happen. So this is the Wakatobi supporter. A lot of UNDP, for example, university, LIPI, NGO, British Council, RAE International, University of Indonesia, Trinity London, Access University London, and so on. We are sitting together to discuss about to become the resource person Wakatobi. So what is the evidence? 10 years of development result. Average economic growth 11.6%. Poverty from 24 to 24.26 to 15.25 point. And also the employment rate from 10 to 4.2. So to develop the small island should be considering 3 items: people and culture, environment, and natural resource development. What we are doing here, did I mention same program? emphasize into cultural rehabilitation of Bhutan Kingdom Sultanate, because Wakatobi part of Bhutan Kingdom Sultanate. There's a value of advanced locals there. It's very for development. Second, biodiversity sustainability. All of the, you build a road, you build a bridge, build everything, considering about the biodiversity sustainability, and the basic research part of the system that tries to make the balancing between three conditions and local economic development, of course. And have a look. Yeah, it is just picture. Yeah, but how is the what is the local culture, the Kearifan locals there can develop, because we try to support the people's ceremony, something like this, have the cultural performance and so on. It is to become the host of Mayor UN Habitat Conference in Wakatobi. There are 187 mayor of the world come to Wakatobi, include it is from Kazakhstan, from Russia, from Australia, almost part of the South Asia and Pacific. Also mayors come to Wakatobi because they want to see the evidence that natural resources ecologically, also culturally there.
Excuse me, Pak
Yeah,
Hugua.
I try to.
Excuse me, Pak
Yeah,
Hugua.
almost.
Your time,
Yeah.
one minute left.
Okay, it is just something like show you the picture, almost finished. Shows the Wakatobi mirror never lies. Discuss about the human resources, natural resources, and environment in Wakatobi, and also winning 12 international competition. This the park in that city. Also, this coral reef artificials there. Yeah, monument by reserve. A lot of flora and fauna is beautiful. Oh my goodness, it's amazing conditions like that. Yeah, it is also the kind of a resource there. Yeah, thank you for your kind attention and cooperation. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Pak Hugua. A big applause for Pak Hugua.
Yeah.
All right, then. So now let's move to the second presenter. I invite Prof. Wahyoe Soepri Hantoro. Your time is yours, Prof. Prof. Wahyoe. Can you hear me, Prof. Wahyoe?
Prof, are you still muted? If you please unmute yourself, Prof. And then also start the video.
Start my video.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, I'm ready now.
Yes.
Okay. Please, Prof. Wahyoe.
Yeah, thank you very much for the very honor invitation to be in this seminar. I would like to share what so far we have done related to the small island, but mostly I would like to talk about the small island itself more in geological aspect than another aspect, as well as social and economic aspect. So the title just very simple: small island needs building resilience and its friendly management face up to natural and anthropogenic extreme event. So next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. So this is the poster of the seminar: Community Participation Institution and Multi-Stakeholder Platform Building Small Island Resilience. As well as another title is talking about increasing resilience in small island in Eastern Indonesia. I would like to share also my experience working with the Banda Sea Island, with the special case we have done in Aru Island. And soon will appear my e-book that will be published by LIPI Press. But with me right now, I have a copy. So this is the book, special for the Aru Island. I will talk later. So the result, this talking will start with the background as well, and then about the physiography of the small island, what strategic value and issue, then the background on geology, oceanology and climate. Then we talk a little bit about marine ecosystem and its dynamic, as well as this is the most influencing, giving the influence to the small island through his, development through time. Yeah, and then marine ecosystem administrative regrouping, because we in Indonesia we have just 2 provinces that manage the island on the administrative regrouping based on the setting of the island. As we can see, it's a small island. So we will talk a little bit about Riau Island and then the Maluku. The last, we will talk about a little bit national spatial planning, mainly around this Bandasi, the Maluku province. So the goal, of course, we hope that then we can produce such national strategic area or kawasan strategi nasional, as well as we worked before with the Banda Sea on the Maluku province. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. So if we talk the natural resilience versus the human need resilience, long-time self-healing and recovery due to the natural hazard, usually it's need to conserve the small island. So the natural island itself, with the question follow, does small island need resilience face to natural threats? And then as well as the type of small island in Indonesia, there are 2 important, emerge and emerge, as well as this is in this case is the reef island along through the sea level variation, and then also the island that produced by tectonically or volcanically or the collapse island. So the island also face to the devastation under the extreme events such as storm, typhoon, and building resilience. So for the human need resilience, usually it takes a long time recovery. So increasing expectation and need, as well as the interest, then it makes the increasing of the relation of the small island. So if there is no people live, or even though just only stop for a while as the stepping land to live to the another island, there is no need to the region we have to introduce. So this island devastation to the human impact is one of the problem that we have to understand. What's the mechanism? So fast induced technology recovery usually needs to let's say to recovery the island that had been devastated due to the human activity. The long recovery through the building resilience by friendly management and protection, it's really needed if we talk about how to manage in the future the small island in Indonesia. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide, please. So if we talk about the threat that to the small island naturally, so the hazard and disaster aspects of the meteorology, we know about the tropical cyclone and excessive rain and drought, such flood and etc. From the oceanography, time of view, about the high sea level due to the rapid and slow onset. And geology, we know that some disaster in the small island is due to or induced by the volcanic eruption around, or even though in the volcanic island itself. And then earthquake that may induce such high with tsunami, and also landslide, and then of course the tsunami itself. but also sometimes we find in the small island, then destroyed by the liquefaction and mass flow induced by the earthquake around this small island. Next slide, please. Next slide. So the next slide is about the Indonesian map. So we can see here in the west part of our country, we have quite shallow epicontinental sea that we call it Sunda platform. But in the east, maybe in the world, just only one, we have the deep sea in the single, area of the country. So we have Banda Sea. So close to the Banda Sea, to the south, we have Sahul platform that represent the continental platform of North Australia. Then in the west, we have India Ocean and Pacific as well in the east. Next slide, please. So I talk about the two different, provinces that in the administrative management set up the administrative work as based on the configuration or physiography of the island in this area. And then we have here the picture of the last maximum glacial around, let's say, 15,000 years ago, when the platform become dry, and there was quite huge big river that flow to the north and one part flow to the east, passing through the Sunda, East Sunda shallow platform. Next slide, please. This picture also, we can see where is exactly the small island in the shallow sea stands. And then this slide is animated. We can see here the change of the sea level that figure out the, it seems that the animation doesn't work, but first, in the first picture, we can see about 18,000 years ago, the sea in the east of, in the west of Indonesia, dried, and slowly in the 15,000 years ago, the sea level rise, and the arrow figure out the path of our ancestor move from the island to the another island, passing through the dry epicontinental shelf. And 16,000 years ago, then until the 12,000 years ago, the sea level continues rise. Of course, the pattern of the migration of our ancestor, change following the change of the sea level and the physiography of the continental platform. Next slide, please. So rapidly we continue to the another slides, because I would like to, next slide, please. Yeah, see, until the about 10,000 years ago, of course, then the sea level up to the present sea level up to now, of course, the Emmert's island, small island at the time, disappear, and followed by the developing of the Reef Island, and due to the shallowing of the, returning the sea level down about 6 meters, then the reef platform become another exposed small island. We call it the coral reef island that usually used as the platform or habitated by the people in the shallow, even though on the deep sea as well as Banda Sea. Next slide, please. So the next slide is about the oceanographic feature during the famous event of last ENSO in 1997. We can see here the blue image of area around our country is represent the anomaly of the sea level that bring the casualties to our coral reef. Many reef in our country devastated, spill out due to the lowering of the sea level. Next slide, please. So that's one of the natural phenomena that may give the strong impact to the ecosystem around the small island. And then this is the picture about the wave direction and its heights. Of course, this the condition of the sea also give the threat to the island, mainly to the low-lying, the small island, for example, in many places built up from the reef, platform. Next, this slide represents the ecostatic sea level curve you choose from uprooted coral reef. In the right side, we can see the situation, the level, the position of the sea level that change through time. Of course, then also change in the physiography of the small island, and then also the development of the small island itself through time in Indonesia. And then this is the meteorological aspect. We can see here the rain as well as the precipitation in Indonesia is totally different from place to the another place. So let's see in the east of Indonesia, very scarce of the rain. That means also just give the meteoric water to the small island. Then if the people live there, of course, then we talk about the resilience of the scarcity of the fresh water that people need to live in the small island. Next slide, please.
Excuse me, Prof. Wahyoe.
Yeah.
Prof.
Yeah, this
Wahyoe,
is the situation of the small island. Yeah.
Prof. Wahyoe.
Yeah.
Excuse me, just to remind you, your time is 1 minute left.
Okay. Next slide, please. So maybe we move fast until this is the method we propose to the small island to exploit the fresh water and to protect the fresh water mixed with the saline water. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the coral distribution. Of course, this is the, let's say we can see as the potential of the small island in our country. Next slide, please. This is the picture of the Banda Sea, and this is the how the vulnerability of Aru Island due to the sea level rise. We can see the green part is the area that could be inundated by the sea level rise. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Sorry. This is the national strategy to delineate the Banda Sea region. So as well as I talked before, development of Banda Sea, we put the concept sustainable, environmental friendly, concept economic friend development based on sustainable fishery, concept of developments and city system accessibility, and etc. through the integrated development of Banda Sea region. Next slide, please. Maybe, yeah, this is the development concept of Banda Sea region. We can see the core of the development is the heritage and biodiversity, fishery, energy, mineral, and infrastructure. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, this is the explanation. I think the participant can follow then this slide that will be distributed. So note, well understanding on the bearing on its bearing capacity and also on its natural process as well. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, as well. Human activity that induce threat. So increasing awareness of stakeholder, strengthening the communication and dialogue among small island stakeholders to meet better management through building its resilience. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I think this is slide. Thank you, terima kasih for your patient, to follow this presentation. Thank you very much, Bu Nadia.
Nadia. Thank you very much, Prof. Wahyoe, for the excellent presentation. So now we move to the third presentation. I would like to invite Maggie Momans.
Hello.
Hi, the time is yours, please.
Thank you. I just share my screen.
Can you share your video, Maggie?
I'm just sharing my screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes, I can see your slide, but we can't see your face. So if you could start your video, please.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I just awesome. Can you see the? Sorry, I just have to go back.
Yeah, we can see you both.
Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to starting off. Wanted to talk a little bit about sort of obviously building the small island resilience, because we spoke a bit about the geology as well as sort of communities. And I just wanted to introduce a couple of locations where I've worked on small islands, and maybe it addresses a couple of issues that we've had at those locations and some of the solutions that we found that would work for those communities over there, work through that. So my two examples are from Vanuatu and Pulau Banyak in Indonesia, and Aceh, which is on the other side of where we're talking about Eastern Indonesia. But I'm not sure whether you've heard of Pulau Banyak. Beautiful island groups, about 99 islands off the coast of Sumatra, Aceh, about 99 islands and scattered communities. So not very many communities. Some of the islands are actually inhabited and just natural environments. Only the red spots, if you see on the slides, the red locations or the red towns actually have people living there. So there are also locations where there's no one, but they're being governed by the local community there as well. And being Pulau Banyak and being in Aceh, you must have heard and been aware of the tsunami in 2004. And there was also, the island group has been affected also by the Nias sort of earthquake in 2005. So that island group's had a lot to deal with in that time. So yeah, really those stresses for small island groups are very prevalent there in terms of the climate change and sea level rise factor, as well as those coastal sort of threats that the community has to deal with. Vanuatu, very different location, but similar threats as well. So you have, the islands groups there in Vanuatu in the Pacific Ocean, and your beautiful communities as well. I mean, friendly, it's actually rated as one of the happiest countries in the world. Very remote communities as well. And they're mainly affected by sort of cyclones. So we've had Cyclone Pam, more recently Cyclone Harold, and obviously really threatened by that sea level rise at the same time. And then when we're thinking about recovery and really making sure that those communities are becoming resilient, adaptation strategies as well as funding and donations have really focused on these locations. But when you're looking at just grants and donors being put towards these communities, there are risks involved. And often, there is a misalignment when you're just looking at grants and donor donations. What happens if it's under objective change? There's equity issues. It's often short term. What happens if the funding dries up? Often grants are very limited for a certain amount of time. They're often earmarked for certain activities and not all across sort of the requirements for the community at a time. There's a social dissonance. So often there's equity issues, so the people aren't really being included in the decision-making process. I've used here an example of harvesting sea turtle eggs as a social dissonance in those risks as part of the donations as well. And the donors, they may have the money, but the community feels that loses their ownership over certain aspects as well. So for example, a coastal environment, they feel that they might lose that ownership over that local ecosystem or natural asset. So an important factor is taking into account what the locals actually find important, and finding, you know, sort of more the dissonance between the groups as well. So the agreements where they things that they find important to focus on within their small islands, in order to really allocate that resilience at the same time, and really put towards that the adaptations. So in Vanuatu, we've actually used a method called Q method in order to reveal the dominant discourses of the stakeholders towards the natural resources. So really trying to include the entire community, not just sort of prominent stakeholders or the loud voices as part of the community, and to find out what their important factors are in terms of that building adaptation or interest in building their community. And you can see this here. It's been used in a lot in developed countries, but this is the first time we're actually putting it into sort of a developing nation context with sort of hands-on surveying. And we just actually, this week, we just came out with a paper on that in Ecological Economics. If you want to read more about that Q method, feel free, it's freely available online on how that works. But the research really showed that building resilience and looking at creating adaptations, they will most likely resonate with the community if they support sort of customary natural resource knowledge and management, and provide opportunities for generating income and promoting gender equity in the decision making. So you can talk about sort of the adaptations, but if they don't generate those income opportunities and including that gender equity, then it's not really going to fit with the community at stake. So I'm moving a little bit into economics in regards to building that resilience, because a couple of questions as well, how to include communities at a whole through a holistic approach. And it comes down thinking of ways of creating and generating income that would get people on board and get them interested. So one of the ways that you could approach that is through combining sort of microfinance and performance payments. So combining the microfinance framework with the biodiversity is a really good way to, touch on those three pillars of sustainable development that's been talked about before. Those socioeconomic, environment and economic sort of pillars, we'll touch on that as well. So by combining those two things, you're actually ensuring that that both the environment as well as your community is being looked after. And it's really tapping into that entrepreneurship of the community as well. And often with grants and donors, they don't always include the opportunities and the economic opportunities that are prevalent within that community, as well as the interest of the local community to set up small businesses or their entrepreneurship as well. So we've seen that in Vanuatu quite prevalently, is that the local community really wanted to set up small businesses, while that wasn't really as part of an economic or like a development aid type of platform. So how did this, for example, work in Aceh in Pulau Banyak, is where we actually linked the biodiversity, or it's like a debt investment approach, with the local community. So where you actually embed that line of credit to your natural environment. So how does that fit? For example, if you have let's say a sea turtle nesting site, and they are being affected by unsustainable egg take, you'll attach that to sort of your a lending credit or a loan, low interest, obviously. And by attaching that, you make sure that that asset is being looked after. You'll go back and look at how that asset is actually performing, whether it's declining, whether it's increasing, numbers are increasing, for example, with a nesting population, or sort of the habitat is improving. For example, when you're looking at coral reefs, where it might be sort of bomb fishing happening, that might be decreased in time, your asset is improving. And then the debt investment approach would sort of look at that line of credit and attach it to the condition of your ecosystem. So that really creates that people would have that interest in looking after the environment, because their livelihood is directly related to that. So for example, how that might look like is number of hatchlings per year, and your incentive would be the line of credit is based on the state of the collateral. Your return would be your actual biodiversity and measurable. So an independent group would come in and measure whether the condition of that natural asset has improved. And then you're looking at, that's obviously annual independent audits. And then your loan is aligned with that as well, creating economic opportunities. In that way, you're creating empowerment of the community, and they decide how to improve their livelihoods. It creates more access to markets. Some of the barriers for small islands definitely would be, a school renovation fees, little things that might affect limitations to that. But overall, it's an approach that you really could create that bond and that connection between your natural assets and your market. So that would create that interest with the community. So why they should invest. So I've got a couple of summaries. So links directly with the biodiversity with a livelihood improvement, which is great. It aligns long-term incentives. So it's a long-term perspective that you're working towards, not a short-term investment of funds. And it moves away from that charitable outlook where you're just looking at donating funds and not having any, not much return. So it's more of a loan-based. Another way that you could look at it as a conservation concessions that we have done successfully in Pulau Banyak, where natural assets are collateral for community goods. We actually worked with 3 different villages there, and we set aside 3 different areas under protection. So they would protect that particular area in return for a common good, for example, a soccer field, a community hall, or storm chasers. So with the condition of looking after those natural assets, they would in return receive, like, let's say, building of a soccer field. The community would actually get to decide what kind of common good they would want for their community. That would be a local sort of decision-making process where it's equal, everyone would get involved. And then in return, they would receive that sort of a donation of that particular common good. And in return, they would have to protect a natural asset. In our case, it was about 620 hectares of protected area, including mangroves, reefs, and primary forest that we managed to protect. And then independent auditors would look at the condition of that particular asset in that 10 years' time. If it would have improved, they would be able to receive another common good, and they would be able to decide on something else that they would like for community. So everyone was able to get involved, and the biodiversity asset actually benefited directly from this. So that proved to be having some really good traction within that community. But what is really important through all those strategies, and when you're getting communities involved, is really looking at what is strong and not what is wrong within a community. So looking at more like opportunities and what people are interested in building, and how you build communities as part of their strengths. So if they would find sport or a community hall important, then that is something that you would get people together on and really create, instead of sort of a dissonance or disagreements within the community, you create something where everyone would get on board and create a healthy discussion and as which areas they would feasibly find to protect and where they would come together. So you create something that's locally driven from grassroots up, where they would get involved and feel really included within that decision-making process. So yeah, that's how I wanted to end. It's a short way because we only have short time. But hopefully that will highlight a little bit about sort of where experience in terms of working with communities come from in a small island sort of perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie, for the excellent presentation. So now we move to the last but not least presentation. I would like to invite Gendewa Tunas Rancak MTech. Time is yours.
Okay. Would you please show my presentation? Okay. At this moment and opportunity, I would like to present and share my experiences as a dynamist of Delta P concept. Delta P is an acronym of Desa Ekologis Tangguh dan Adaptif Perubahan Iklim, or Ecological Resilience and Adaptive Village towards the Climate Change. This concept is rural-based on small island that implemented in Bali, West Nusa Tenggara, East Nusa Tenggara, and North Moluccas. Next slide, please. Okay. Yeah, based on our field experiences, there are several main challenges that face small island. It come up first with the geographical aspect, which is most of the small island are remote area. Then it followed by the political aspect in case of development agenda. Small islands used to experience of development bias, which they receive same treatment as the medium and big island. But we know small island has a different resistance and vulnerability. The challenges increase due to the climate change, which also increase the negative impact of society welfare, such as economy, environment, wellness, food security, education, water sufficiency, also energy and infrastructure. Next slide, please. Based on our field research, we found that small island has 4 specific characteristics, and we call it for 8. The first one is it sometimes and mostly dependent to mainland and weather. That's why it receives high pressure due to economic, education, development, health, and environment. Moreover, it clearly more vulnerable due to natural disaster and climate change impact. Meanwhile, small island used to have a high conservation value due to its biodiversity, germplasm, and its ecosystem. That's why it also giving the significant impact to a mainland or closest area. But in another hand, it also receives a significant impact from massive activities in the mainland on the closest area. Some small islands are highly prospect for economic and environment development as if it managed comprehensively and wisely. Next slide, please. Next slide. We are going to learn about, and I'm going to share more about the Delta Api concept that we implemented on 4th province in Indonesia. Due to conducting and implementing Delta Api, we need to running 4 main approaches systematically and simultaneously. The first one is approach for action, which consists of participatory, technocracy, policy, and sociocultural action. All of the process, such as mapping and planning, engage the community and then completed by a scientific and technology intervention, which is also trained to the community, especially for the youth. Government engagement also needed for make sure it come up in a regular program by government and controlled by the community. Sociocultural aspect wisely designed by the elder in the community to respond and adapt the small island environment. That's why it's also become a benchmark for planning, then followed by transformation into existing environment and scientific and contextual reason. Next slide, please. The second approach is interconnectivity. It started from interconnection of programmatics by a multi-layer and multi-stakeholder. Then it followed by the institutional interconnection among the government, community, and the private sector. At the same time, it also continued by knowledge management for benchmarking, elaboration, and synergy. Next slide, please. The third approach is all of the activities start from area interconnection perspective, such as overlaying, integration, synergy, and multi-collaboration, with a hamlet or sub-village and village as the entry point. Usually, we use one interconnection area consists of 3 villages in administratively. Next slide. The fourth accompaniment is important activity that should be held simultaneously and continuously. The accompaniment was held in community along with the controlling and monitoring with the government as a decision maker. So the accompaniment conduct in the community and also with the government. Next slide. For establishing Delta API, stakeholder engagement is a must. There are many actions of collaboration, but there are 4 main engagement, as you may see in your screen. That important thing is youth is the leader. We train selected youth to become a leader who are able to plan, monitor, control, advocate their basic needs, and draw and show it into the map. We also train them to analyze the vulnerability and resiliency of their island towards the climate change. So the planning will accommodate the adaptation and mitigation due to the climate change. Next slide. Here's the challenges for while I'm conducting and implementing Delta API in 4th province in Indonesia. So the first one is our system is too dynamic. The needs, economic policy, and also person in charge of decision maker changing rapidly and continuously. So we collaborate and we communicate with some people and some person in government this year. Maybe the person will change into another office next year. It's so rapid changing in Indonesia. The second is remote area and network accessibility make the accompaniment harder. The third, youth are lack of opportunity to join the regular development process in village, in district, region, and province. It also happened with the locals in the region level. And the fourth is acceleration is needed, but our resources are limited. The fifth is the climate change cause unpredictable season, environmental change and degradation, increase the seawater level, increase the strength of the wind and wave, cause drought and flood, etc. So these 5 challenges identified, and I met these 5 challenge while I'm conducting the Delta API in 4th province in Indonesia. Next slide, please. From my presentation, I would like to have a conclusion that interconnectivity is really important to develop and manage the small island. And meanwhile, because of the small island, so areal scape is more important than single administrative boundary area. Then common needs are the first thing that has to accommodate on the plan and implementation. The last is knowledge management and transfer of knowledge are seriously important to increase the capacity of youth and community. Next slide. Okay, that's all of my short presentation. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gendewa, for the excellent presentation. All right then, so now we move to the question and answer session. So from the Q&A panel, I see many questions here, but as we as I mentioned before previously, that we will pick the most interesting questions signed by more thumb ups. So I will choose this. There is a question from Asep Rahman from Wakatobi. Asep Rahman from Wakatobi is a public health teacher in Samratulangi, Manado. In small island, we still have a big problem with the garbage. There is unstable. Hello? Hello, can you hear me? So in small island, we still have a big problem with the garbage. There is no good waste management yet. Unfortunately, most of population still put the garbage on the sea. How can we make changes there? How to contribute to local community? Or maybe he mean how the local community can contribute to this problem? Maybe this question will go to Pak Hugua. Maybe you have some experience from best practice.
Yeah. No? Direct answer?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
Prof. Hugua. Pak Hugua.
Okay. Thank you, Asep. Okay. So direct to the source of garbage. The source first come from Jakarta, Makassar, and some of the Kalimantan Island because they floating on the ocean, and mostly on September, when I diving on September, a lot of plastic waste pass through Wakatobi, go into the Pacific Ocean, and it's a big problem. And it is huge. I can say it's huge. Again, it is huge. The second is come from, it is the habit of the community. The problem is to write the awareness, it is not same speed as the plastic import or the plastic businesses come into even the small villages. And mostly the behavior of the people, it seems like eating a corn. It's very easy, just eating the corn and also the surface of kulitnya just throw away. It is the main habit. During my power, by the time, I very exercise in Bajonis people in Mola. Oh my goodness, this is a community base. So the community have their own organizations like the presentation from Mr. dari Bali. So the community can make the small organization and they can self-help for sustainable waste management. And I believe in Wakatobi, I can say that 100% change during 10 years until now. You can come to Wakatobi. Before 2006, I can say that, oh my goodness, totally a lot of plastic. But we raised the people awareness in the same time, also the government policy. Also for the public servant, also I push them, try to become a contoh. I know in English, contoh, teladan. And then it is working. But again, Pak Asep Rahman, it is not a day working. It is continuously working. Thank you. Saya kira Ibu Nadia cukup.
Ibu Nadia, ya.
Thank you, Pak Hugua.
Yes,
We have still another question. Where is it? This one. Yes, the question is from Muhammad Rizki Maulana. As he is a student of Social Welfare Department, University of Indonesia. So he said that we know that when we conduct social project and ought to do engagement with the community, we often face both challenges and inhibitions. So the question is how to optimize the roles of the community to be participated in our social or environment projects due to the challenges and inhibitions we may be faced. This question may goes to Maggie, or yeah.
So this is a question from Maul, is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
From Maul.
So yeah, it's how to optimize the roles. Sorry, just to be participating in the project. So one of the important things that when we're doing research, and I've found that in Vanuatu as well as Latin America and Indonesia, is making sure that you are including all levels of community and not just the sort of particular stakeholders that always have a say or have a role. For example, in Vanuatu, you have to have, for example, a female team member in order to speak with the women or female groups on the islands. Otherwise, you won't get responses from them. So always understanding the local, sort of platform that you're working on and the local traditions and cultures. Local languages really work. Obviously, there's all different dialects everywhere. Pulau Banyak, for example, has its own dialect, different from the Chinese language as well. Vanuatu has also different languages than like on different islands. So understanding how people communicate, their levels of education. A lot of people may not be able to read. So when you're collecting information or data, make sure that you are able to converse with them in ways that they feel comfortable with that as well. So not provide just sort of material that is written down, but maybe using illustrations. So there are a couple of things to consider when you're working with local communities, but most of all is making sure that you include from youth all the way to government officials to get like a voice that is spread between all stakeholders.
Okay. Well, next question is from Catherine Chop from Sydney. So she's asking question for Mr. Hugua.
Yeah.
So Catherine said that, thank you so much. I'm very excited. Oops, where is? Okay, so Catherine Chak from Sydney, she's asking, she said that she is very excited at the opportunity available from the decentralized model and role of local municipalities for developing local community activity and engagement. So the coral triangle is so important for developing Indonesia's and the region's blue economy in a sustainable way. Do you think so, Pak Hugua? Will local municipalities have a coordinated approach across the region?
Sorry, the key point is?
Okay, so the coral triangle is so important for developing Indonesia's and the region's blue economy in a sustainable way. Do you think so?
Yes.
And will local municipalities have a coordinated approach across the region?
Yep. Okay, so because it's my position now, I'm the head of local government network within 6 countries, CTIS countries: Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Island, Timor-Leste. So like this, Catherine, so thank you very much. But before I answer you, I'd like to back again that how to increase the community participation, because it is my duty when I was the NGOs activist. And when I be mayor, I see there are 2 points. The first is how to make the community aware. It's the main important thing. And in the project, there are socialization phase, implementation, and sustainability phase. So to make the community participation is much depend on the first stage, socialization phase. If the people do not put to become the main actor, if the community do not put the main actor, and you fail totally for the community participation. Second is mostly NGOs working too small and just thinking about empowering the community. Don't thinking how to empower the local indigenous leader as well as the local political leader. Mayor and local parliament play an important role. If they do not understand, destroy everything because they have no power to say no or yes. So there are two. Community, the first actor or the main actor. Second is how is the governance. It's like me, for the birth services, I make the decree of mayor to make all of stakeholders legally acting for sustainable, implementing sustainable way. Without the mayor action, I don't think that it is a sustainable way because it's more or less the governance. The governance, again, the governance. If you spread community participation with the involvement of the local government, they have the power, political as well as community power, you fail. Catherine, yes, mayor to mayor, we are a good dialogue now. We have a good dialogue now. Particularly for the mayor that stay border countries. So, blue economy, it is part of our concern now because we believe that the ocean, the coral triangle, it is the band of marine biodiversity in the world. And we believe in the future that we can say that something like the peradaban. We believe that one. Peradaban, how to say in Indonesia in English. Civilization comes from European countries, comes to China, and next comes to the Pacific. And then the main resources there, it is the ocean. Blue economy, it is a part of how we considering about one is the community and the cultural community of the 6 countries should be maintained because there is no kearifan there. Kearifan, how to say in English? Kearifan, Catherine. You try to find out in dictionary because kearifan saya tidak punya bahasa Inggris there. But this is the value to make the glue of the people. And the mayor, when discuss the mayor from Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, Timor-Leste, it is same as community to community diplomacy, business to business diplomacy, not country to country, because country to country is more political scientism. So we are discussing about how we try to put our coral triangle to become the future civilization. That is our discussion. And the only thing is blue economy, the people and culture, natural resources, of course, ocean, sumber daya kelautan, ocean and kelautan, fishery, and blah, 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 and environment. So environment, natural resources, community, it is the main thing or the main component of the blue ocean. So yes, we have now yearly meeting. We have now yearly meeting with the mayor. Also, we have now five-year basis meeting for discuss about the sustainability of the ocean. Thank you. Bu Nadia.
Okay, thank you, Pak Hugua. So now we still have questions. The questions will be the questions from Rahayu Ningtyas. This question will go to Prof. Wahyoe.
Yes, I'm ready.
So, sorry. So the question is, in building small island resilience, can we consider kearifan lokal and suggest a specific KLHS, kajian lingkungan hidup strategis, for those small islands? Please, Prof. Wahyoe, you can.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
So to increase the strength, I mean, in this case, of course, through the increasing the resilience, we hope that to make the community's better understanding on the natural process. First, that we have to what so-called to set up, because without understanding the natural process that could be usually unpredictable sometimes and come in the high magnitude of that give the strong devastation. So this is important. Then we can ask the local people through this, their awareness to set up such the what so-called natural approach to protect the environment, as well as if we link with the plastic I mean problem. Please start, for example, how to reduce the what so-called the product that usually distributed until even though the village is far from the town, using the plastic, and then under the lesser awareness, thrown direct to the, for example, to the sea. The result or the impact is the piling of these garbage could then reduce the capacity, for example, the fresh water instead come into the, I mean, the aquifer, then flow out to the sea. This is one aspect. For example, it's not really, I mean, difficult to make the people understand what's about the process exactly works in the very limited surface of the island. Of course, there are many aspects about the how to protect the island, not in the very not I mean just in the simple way by increasing awareness of the local people. For example, to protect the coast from the high sea, or let's say the wave during the cyclone, etc. By, let's say, increasing the I mean and protecting, for example, the mangrove along the coast. But of course, to protect the coral reef, that naturally this is the most I mean useful natural protector to, let's say, to stop I mean the wave, even though also the current that come direct through to the coast when during the high season could be bring the I mean the damage to the coast, for example. Of course, I would like to talk not just only to the adaptation, but also talking about the mitigation that could be come from, let's say, I mean, it's mean the participant from many different stakeholder then share the I mean the knowledge about the mitigation adaptation to protect, I mean to say the island from the natural devastation. But the important thing, of course, I would like say that the most I mean important give the impact could be come from the anthropogenic or human activity. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Wahyoe. One more question for Prof. Wahyoe.
Yeah.
How to improve science policy in small islands, especially in Maluku Islands?
Yeah, we have worked for a long time. We found the good, let's say the cooperation from the government. So as well as our contact not just only to in case to, let's say, to prepare the community, but also we also think about how the good environment in the small island also will induce the resilience to the local people in terms of their health, because they think if something happen about, let's say, the pandemic, or let's say the accident, something like that, it's very difficult to evacuate let's say, the victim from the far and tiny island using very limited transportation to the closer, let's say, hospital to help these people. So in terms of the distance, for example, the government tend to develop the local strength of the people that could help by their own capacity, for example, not just to protect the island, but also how to make any problem in the far or in remote area can be resolved by themselves. Of course, in terms of the scientific, let's say, approach, the more contact and more participation coming from the local government, mainly from the province, highly expected by the local people, could be organized more and more frequent to see first to understand what's the need exactly the local people face to the problem in the remote area that they need. Of course, just help, as well as the less capacity of the remote people. It's not easy to be, let's say, to overcome in the present time. Maybe that is just what I can say so far. If we talk about the need of the academic, let's say, or scientific approach to give the local people more, let's say, ready and prepare to, to help themselves in the very remote area, such in the Maluku province that we know the transportation is very limited there. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the excellent answers. So there is one more questions goes to Pak Gendewa from Handika. Check. From Heni Warsila, sorry. From Heni Warsila. How are the local peoples, especially in small island, create and develop their social resiliences because they don't have social infrastructures like accessibility. They don't have participation on program development or in local coastal management, and they don't have any information about the development in coastal areas.
Okay, thank you for the question, Bu Heni, right?
Yeah, from Heni Warsila.
Okay, the first things is community level or small island community. In each small island has the local wisdom, like Mr. Hugua said, Karifan lokal. the elder of the community has developed the local wisdom based on the natural resources, based on the adaptation in the small island living. The local wisdom should be a value that can that we may implement in right after this era, but we have to accommodate and tolerate the local wisdom into a contextual reason and a scientific base, and then it will be resolve our problem. I'll give you an example. My basic is engineering, so I read the book of the engineering structure, such as a structure. So when I read a book with the structure from the outside of our country, it not match with the local architecture in Lombok area. So when 2018, a big earthquake come to Lombok, all of the modern structure made by and referenced by the book is destroyed, but local architecture by the indigenous people is still steady, and all of the indigenous community living happily. It's different from the modernity of the society. So to answering the Mbak Henny's question is, they already have the knowledge. They already have the knowledge, but they haven't they have not any opportunity to explore their knowledge. They lack of experience to show that we have the knowledge, and community and society outside the island come to the island, bring the new method and new knowledge, and then some community says that the knowledge and the method from the outside the small island is a better knowledge than what they have. We cannot compare that which one is better, but we can collaborate the knowledge. So beside the local knowledge, and then the existing knowledge, and community engagement is important to develop the resiliency of the island. So the community of the island cannot face itself by themselves. We as the university, as the community outside the small island, as the government, as the society or the community outside the small island, need to participate. But they cannot achieve because it's a remote area. They cannot access any information. I agree with Bu Henny. The information accessibility is such as important thing right now, but they haven't made the good solution for the information technology. So I have 3 points for answering Bu Henny: local knowledge, existing knowledge, and then community engagement to develop the community resiliency. Thank you.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Pak Gendewa. So because of the limitation of the time, so now we move to the next session. I would like to ask closing remarks and takeaway messages from each of our distinguished speakers. So I would like to start from Mr. Hugua. Would you like to give a closing remarks and takeaway message?
Okay, thank you, Bu Nadia. So to build a small island, particularly the municipality based on small island, it is depend on the leadership. Why the country, the neighboring countries that just border by rule and the house between neighbor countries face to face. Why different from another country to another country? Depend on the leadership. Again, depend on the leadership. Leadership means not the leadership or collective, I mean the collective leadership, but there's a leader that can give a certain point of vision that we are going to. Therefore, thinking about small island, particularly for the municipality, basic small island, it will depend on the vision of based on the potential of the area itself. And now the condition of the area, they're vulnerable, particularly for the climate change, political, blah, 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 based on any limitation. And also, how is the priority leading the principles? The principle. Considering about the people, cultural. Also, thinking about the environment, natural resources, sustainability. If not that one, 10 years, a lot of us divided one earth to become very vulnerable and very risky people and culture. Local wisdom, yes, thank you, Pak Gendewa. Environment balancing as well as the natural resources availability, that's the point. The third is priority leading sector under equal involvement of the multi-stakeholder. Again, the government, don't forget the governance, because I active in NGOs almost 20 years, but mostly the NGOs just think about the community down. They don't think about the governance that very powerful to make sustain or unsustain of the small island municipality base. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Prof. Hugua, Pak Hugua emphasized in the importance of the powerful of governance, yeah, the strong leadership who knows the strength, the weakness of their area and how to build resilience for small island. Okay, now I move to the second guest, Prof. Wahyoe Hantoro. Would you like to have to give closing remarks and a takeaway message?
Yes, thank you. My close remarks. I like to one question coming from someone from Makassar, asking about the, let's say, bearing capacity of the island. It seems that based on our knowledge and scientific, let's say, strength, we can then understand how sensitivity of the small island exactly. Then we know about the bearing capacity to what I mean to what so far the small island can let's support not just only the occupancy of the people in the island, but also the activity in the island. So please work together, of course, among the stakeholders based on our, knowledge and scientific capacity with another, let's say, through the different approach to increase the resilience of the small island face to the more and more in the coming future, the stress to the small island that could be give, of course, more and more casualty of the small island, and could be we will let's say miss or will some of our island will disappear. So just maybe what I could give the closing remarks for this time. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bu
Thank
Nadia,
you, Prof. Wahyoe.
Bu Nadia, boleh saya interupsi?
Oh, ya. Okay.
Mohon maaf, I must leaving because I must go to the office.
All right. Thank you for
very
your
much.
time, Pak Hugua, and for your excellent presentation.
Salam semuanya. See you next time.
See you next time. All right then. So now I move to the next speakers. Maggie Moormans, would you like to give closing remarks and takeaway message?
Sure. Well, thank you for everyone for joining. It's always lovely to be able to be part of these webinars, and it's amazing to see the number of people that attend. And it's very much in Australia, that's I've never seen that much interest in webinars compared to Indonesia. So it's amazing opportunity to be part of this. I think my closing remarks and a lot of the questions and discussion and presentations have been around community engagement and community participation. And I think it's important to remember that with those being effective, or to have effective community engagement and community participation, all parties need to listen to each other and communicate in ways that are respectful. Often communication is being conducted in ways that people point fingers or blaming, or even within communities, within small islands, even, you know, communities that are living within that community on different islands are often in disagreement with each other. And in order to create change or create some kind of resilience as part of those communities, it is important to even understand within your community what are the priorities, and then jointly communicate that to local government or even higher government levels. But also for government to include communities in the policy making and policy decision making process, not just having them included at the start when you're thinking about creating a policy, but having them included throughout the process and from start to middle to end, and have a continuous discussion, not just an information one way kind of process where they just being consulted, but really create that local empowerment and empowerment from local communities.
Okay, thank you, Maggie. So the last but not least, Pak Gendewa.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for joining us in our webinar. It's the same as Maggie says. It's it's amazing to see the participant is around 500.
Almost 1,000 with the in the YouTube live streaming.
Okay, yeah. It's amazing. I'm just short. We cannot develop small island from desk, from office, or from big island. Come to the island, stay with the locals, be a part. Then you will not just develop the island, you will also encourage the community. That's for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you then. So from all these interesting presentation from our distinguished speakers, we can conclude that strong governance and the work together among all stakeholders, as Prof. Wahyoe said and Maggie said, that we cannot only depend on gender equity or one NGO, but the whole community should be involved together in building the resilience of small island. And Pak Gendewa support this statement that we cannot build the small islands from our office. We have to get involved through the whole community. So this is that's the conclusion, and I close the question and answer session now, and I give this session back to Leah.
Thank you very much, Bu Nadia. Please, ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for our chair and also panelists for today's discussion. I guess it was really great. Thank you again. And I wish I could be spending more time with the community on the ground, but unfortunately, I'm stuck here in Jakarta. Cannot go out anywhere. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to share the result of our polling, which is interesting. So let me share the screen so people in YouTube can also see the result. All right. Can you hear my? Can you see my my screen? Okay.
Yes, it is clear.
All right. Great. So we have 507 people joining the poll, 100%. So and then most of them are from academia, which is 39%. Hold on, I'm gonna mute. Okay. And from national government, 23%, local government, 9%, students, 10%. There are also people from private sectors as well, 4%, NGO, 6%, community, 5%, media, 1%, and 3% others. So we have a pretty varied stakeholders in joining our webinar. Hold on, I'm still trying to mute Pak Rahmat. Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I'm going to mute you, Pak, for a while.
Okay,
Right.
no problem.
Okay, and then the next one, how important is the community engagement and interconnectivity on the development of small islands? Hold on, because the background noise is pretty, yeah, hold on, good. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna mute. Sorry for that. Oh, here we go. Yes. So, no one say it's not important, so that's good. 1% it's less important. 1% say it's less important. 6% say it's neutral. 35% say it's important, and 58% say, or the majority say it's very important. So that's great. Number 3, are there enough opportunities in Indonesia to influence local policy decisions? 74% people say yes, and 26% say no. Which and where is the most vulnerable island that needs building resilience? Western, Middle, or Eastern Indonesia? The majority said 62% of you say Eastern Indonesia. Number 5, which stress that may bring serious damage to the islands? 45% say it's natural, 55% say it's anthropogenic. So that's the result. Thank you very much. And then I would like to also remind participants to be able to download our materials from the panelists in a Google Drive account, which Handika will send the link to our Facebook page, Institute for Sustainable Earth and Resources, or Handika later will show the screen, so don't worry. And we don't need your attendance, but if you wish for a certificate, you can later fill in the form that will be shared by Handika as well in a minute. So ladies and gentlemen, I think we are nearly approaching the end, but we still have Pak Yatna Supriyatna here to give a closing remark. Pak Yatna Supriyatna is the director of Institute for Sustainable Earth and Resources, and he's the lead as well with Prof. Caitlin Byrne for this CAIPSDCC. Pak Yatna, the time is yours.
Hello, Leah. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, first of all, thank you for Pak Rahmat for introduction of Rahmat Kutular. And then, of course, there's our CAIPSDCC directors, Prof. Caitlin, and then others, especially Prof. Jamaldin Jompa, who is also our partner during this webinar. And then we also like to thank, where is Pak Hugua? Is already left, is my friend. He's a member of the parliament, and I used to be working with him together for development of the national park there in the southeastern Indonesia, Sulawesi. Okay, let me thanking for others, which is Ibu Maggie Mermans, of course, member of the CAIPSDCC. Prof. Wahyoe, thank you very much for the sharing a lot of knowledge on these Indonesian islands. I don't know how to say Mas or Bapak Gondewa. I think, thank you very much, Mas Gondewa. I think from the Universitas Nahdlatul Ulama from NTB. Of course, the moderator, Mbak Nadiarti, Dr. Nadiarti from Hasanuddin. Who else? Of course, Leah, always be our host. And I think for everybody, the rest of 500, this is really weekly webinar from CAIPSDCC and collaboration between Australia and Indonesia. It's really great honor to have you all and sharing your knowledge, especially in the local community participation and resilience and so on. I'm really, although I just a few minutes that I attended, because I was with webinar also with the Eastern Indonesia in few hours. And I think the share common from other webinar is that the importance of the community engagement and interconnection between this community, governments, university, and also decision makers, private sectors. And then when I just jump up from the Eastern Indonesia, because last webinar I was with Universitas Hairun from Ternate. So, and then this is really important that the pay attention for Eastern Indonesia, because that is the 6,000 island, mostly small island in the Wallacea, only in Wallacea. And then if you could jump up with the all Eastern Indonesia is about 8,000. So I think this is really one of the biggest chunk of Indonesian island. Okay, so I think thank you very much, Mbak Lia, Prof. Rahmat Witular, for the introduction, for leading the CAIPSDCC, for from the last to the future, because Prof. Rahmat is still going strong to lead this CAIPSDCC. And then for Mbak Lia, and then Hendika for sharing all this and inviting everybody to the webinar. Thank you very much.
Ya, terima kasih. Thank you, Pak Yatna. So, I guess everyone, I think we are reaching the end of this webinar. And don't forget that next week we also have another webinar that will be discussing about sustainable livelihoods and local economies for communities in small islands in Indonesia. So, stay tuned for our next webinar. Andika will be sending information about that. And again, thank you, Prof. Rahmat Witular, Prof. Yatna Supriyatna, Prof. Wahyoe, Ibu Nadia, Maggie, and Mas Dewa for your great presentation and also discussion. And then also mostly for participants who stay until the end. I recognize some of your names that you are becoming a regular. It's really great to have you here. And then hopefully you can also share this information to more people, because in YouTube we can accommodate unlimited. So again, for participants, I think Handika will be answering your question, and I will make Handika the host, so it can be shared about the certificate. And then again, see you next week. Handika and Leah here from the control room. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you. Terima kasih, Bapak. Terima kasih semuanya. So the speakers and the participants, you may leave. Yeah, you may leave this webinar. Hendika and I will hang around for a bit, waiting for the participants to get the link. Thank you again. See you next week.
Thank you very much, Bapak Ibu.
Bye-bye.
Andika, you can take over, yeah?
Okay.
I leave. Okay, bye everyone.